What happens when a group of young people, searching for something to believe in, meets a man with a dark vision for the future? What happens when charisma, drugs, and twisted ideology blur the line between reality and madness? In 1969, Charles Manson, an ex-convict and self-proclaimed prophet, led his followers to commit one of the most infamous murders in American history, the Manson family murders. But why did his followers kill for him? Was it blind devotion, manipulation, or something far more sinister? In this video, we dive deep into the twisted world of Charles Manson and his followers. We will unravel the facts behind the Manson family murders and try to understand the dark influence Manson held over his cult. Was it simply a tragic case of manipulation, or was there something darker at play, a deeper, unspoken conspiracy hiding behind Manson's promises of a new world order? Get ready, because what you're about to hear is nothing short of shocking. The story of the Manson family murders begins in the summer of 1969. Charles Manson, a 35-year-old ex-convict with a disturbing vision of the world, had gathered around him a group of young people, mostly women, who followed him blindly. Manson convinced them that a race war was coming, a war between blacks and whites. He called it helter-skelter, a term borrowed from the Beatles' song of the same name. Manson claimed that the murders he orchestrated were part of a larger plan to ignite this war, though he was the only one who seemed to truly believe in the vision he had created. But before the murders took place, Manson's followers were nothing more than a group of lost souls, searching for meaning. These were young people, many of them from broken homes or troubled pasts. They sought out Manson not just for his teachings, but for his sense of belonging, something they had never found in their lives. In the early hours of August 8, 1969, Manson sent 4 of his followers to the home of actress Sharon Tate, who was 8 months pregnant, and 4 of her friends. What followed was a bloody, brutal killing spree that would forever be etched in American history. Tate, along with her guests, was murdered in a horrific fashion. The next night, Manson's followers went on to kill again. Leno and Rosemary LaBianca were brutally stabbed to death in their own home. These were not random acts of violence, but acts that Manson had carefully orchestrated to set in motion his prophecy of helter-skelter. The brutality of the murders left people wondering, how could someone convince a group of young people to commit such heinous acts? The simple answer was Manson's charisma and manipulation. To understand the full impact of the Manson family murders, we must first explore the background of Charles Manson. Born in 1934 in Cincinnati, Manson had a troubled childhood. He spent much of his early life in and out of juvenile facilities, and as an adult, he was repeatedly incarcerated for various crimes. But despite his criminal past, Manson was a master of manipulation. He understood the power of influence, and he used that power to control the minds of vulnerable individuals. In the late 1960s, Manson gathered a group of followers, mostly young women, who were looking for a sense of community, purpose, and freedom from societal norms. These were people who had been abandoned by their families, disillusioned with the world, and searching for something to believe in. Manson promised them all of this and more. He told them that he could show them a new way of life, one where they were free from societal expectations and limitations. He preyed on their vulnerabilities, filling their minds with the idea that they were destined to play a crucial role in an apocalyptic future. Manson's ability to manipulate and control was truly disturbing. He used a combination of psychological tricks, mind-altering substances like LSD, and his own form of love to keep his followers loyal. But Manson didn't just use fear and drugs. He created an entirely new worldview for his followers, a reality that was completely detached from the one most people knew. He convinced them that they were the chosen ones, the people who were going to play a part in bringing about the end of the world. He painted a picture of a world that was about to be destroyed, and they believed him. On the night of August 8, 1969, Manson's followers, led by Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Tex Watson, were sent to Sharon Tate's home. Sharon, who was 8 months pregnant with her child, was hosting a small gathering with friends. The group was brutally murdered, and their bodies left to be discovered the next day. The crime scene was shocking, not just because of the brutality, but because of the messages Manson's followers left behind. Pig was written in blood on the door of the Tate home, a symbolic act meant to inflame racial tensions. The next night, the killings continued. Manson's followers went to the home of Leno and Rosemary LaBianca. The couple was tortured and stabbed to death in a manner even more brutal than the previous night's murders. Again, The killers left messages, "Death to pigs," and "Helter Skelter" were scrawled in blood on the walls. Manson believed that by committing these murders, he was triggering the helter-skelter race war that he had predicted, but despite the bloody evidence, Manson wasn't immediately arrested. The police had no idea who was behind the murders. The investigation dragged on, and the details of the killings became more and more mysterious. What seemed like a random act of violence quickly became something much more complicated. Why were these people killed? Was it really about race, or was there something more? Was it simply the work of a deranged cult leader, or was there a deeper conspiracy at play? The police eventually caught a break when they arrested one of Manson's followers, Susan Atkins, who had been involved in the Tate murders. Once in custody, Atkins confessed to the killings, and slowly the rest of the Manson family began to crack under the pressure. But even after Manson's arrest, questions remained. How had Manson managed to control these people so completely? Was it just the drugs, or was there something more sinister going on? As investigators dug deeper, they began to uncover the bizarre reality of Manson's control over his followers. Manson's teachings were more than just apocalyptic visions. He had a profound psychological hold over his followers. He was able to create a false reality where they believed they were acting as agents of change, fulfilling a divine purpose. But was that really the case? Or was Manson simply using them as pawns in his own twisted game? Many of Manson's followers were convinced that they were part of something greater than themselves. They believed they were helping to bring about the end of the world, and in their minds, the murders were justified. Some of them were so deeply brainwashed by Manson's teachings that they believed he had the power to control their thoughts and actions. The more they followed him, the more they became trapped in his distorted version of reality. So why does the Manson family case continue to fascinate us today? It's not just the brutality of the murders, but the psychological manipulation behind them. How could one man convince a group of young, impressionable people to murder for him? How could he make them believe they were part of something greater? The Manson family murders raise uncomfortable questions about the power of cult leaders and the psychology of manipulation. There are many theories about why Manson was able to control his followers. Some believe that he preyed on their vulnerabilities. Many of them came from broken families or had suffered abuse in their pasts. They were looking for love and acceptance, and Manson provided them with that. Others argue that Manson used drugs, mind games, and isolation to break down his followers' resistance. In his eyes, they were nothing more than pawns in his game, a game he had carefully constructed to serve his own needs. There are still many unanswered questions about the case. What did Manson really want? Was it just about power, or was there a larger vision behind his madness? Did he truly believe in the helter-skelter race war, or was it just an excuse for his violent actions? And what about his followers? Were they truly brainwashed, or did they have their own reasons for committing murder? Despite Manson's conviction and the conviction of his followers, many questions remain. The case continues to intrigue people, not just because of the murders, but because of the twisted way Manson was able to control his followers. The legacy of the Manson family is a disturbing reminder of the dangers of charismatic leaders and the power they can wield over vulnerable individuals. So, could the Manson family murders have been prevented? What was it about Manson's personality that allowed him to manipulate his followers so completely? Was he simply a master of psychological control, or was there something even more insidious at play? What did Manson truly leave behind? Was it just the bloodshed, or was it the psychological scars that still haunt the survivors and the families of the victims? What was it that made his followers so willing to murder for him? Was it a twisted vision, a promise of freedom, or something else entirely? The killings were just the beginning. Charles Manson's twisted ideology didn't end with the murders. What followed was a story of manipulation, pedophile frenzy, and psychological warfare. But what did Manson's followers really believe? Were they just puppets to his strings, or was there more to their involvement in these horrific crimes? The story of the Manson family doesn't end with the murder scenes. The aftermath of those murders was a chaotic mix of fear, confusion, and unanswered questions. As the investigation into the killings picked up steam, detectives quickly started to piece together the trail that led to Charles Manson and his followers. On December 1st, 1969, Manson was arrested, but not for the murders. At the time, police didn't have enough evidence to tie him directly to the killings. Manson was arrested on a separate charge of suspicion of stealing cars, a small crime that turned out to be the breakthrough that investigators needed. Once he was in custody, authorities began questioning him, and it became clear that Manson wasn't just any ordinary criminal. He had a deep, unsettling psychological hold over his followers. They believed, as he did, that he was the Messiah, the man who would lead them to salvation. But how was Manson able to control these young people, many of whom came from stable backgrounds, with such precision? The answer lies in his ability to create a separate reality, a world where his followers believed they were living in the end times. He convinced them that a race war was imminent and that only those who followed him would survive. To some, Manson wasn't just a man. They believed he was the prophet who would guide them through the apocalypse. In the months following Manson's arrest, authorities were able to arrest more of his followers, including Susan Atkins, Patricia Krenwinkel, and Tex Watson. Atkins was the first to confess to the murders, providing key details about the killings and Manson's involvement. As more followers came forward, the truth about the Manson family's involvement in the murders became undeniable. The question, however, remained: why did they kill for him? One of the most chilling aspects of the Manson family murders is how Manson's followers, especially the women, had no hesitation in following his orders to kill. These were young women, many of whom had never committed a crime before. Yet, when Manson told them to murder for him, they obeyed without question. How did he do it? What made them so blindly loyal to him? Experts have spent years trying to understand Manson's psychological grip on his followers. It wasn't just his charm or the fact that he preyed on their vulnerabilities. It was his ability to manipulate them into seeing themselves as part of something bigger than themselves. Manson's influence was not just a matter of words, it was his entire persona. He portrayed himself as a prophet, a man who understood the truths of the universe that others couldn't grasp. He convinced his followers that they were destined for greatness, that they would play a key role in a war that would reshape society. To them, Manson wasn't just a leader, he was their savior. But beyond the manipulation, there was another layer to Manson's control. He used drugs to destabilize his followers, keeping them in a constant state of vulnerability. Manson's family was under the influence of LSD and other mind-altering substances, making them more susceptible to his control. This manipulation wasn't just psychological, it was physical too. Manson also employed isolation. He kept his followers away from the outside world, further sealing them off from reality. They were cut off from their families, their friends, and any outside influence that could challenge Manson's authority. By controlling every aspect of their lives from their thoughts to their daily routines, Manson turned his followers into tools to execute his violent vision. The trial of Charles Manson and his followers began in 1970, but it was no ordinary court case. The trial was a media spectacle. People were fascinated by Manson's charisma, his odd behavior in court, and his bizarre relationship with his followers. The public was captivated by the idea that Manson could turn ordinary young people into cold-blooded killers. Throughout the trial, Manson's followers, especially the women, displayed unwavering loyalty to him. They would often shout, "Helter-skelter," in court, repeating the mantra that Manson had used to justify the murders. To Manson's followers, the trial wasn't about justice, it was about continuing the revolution that Manson had promised them. Even though they were sitting in a courtroom, facing serious charges, they were still living in Manson's twisted version of reality. 80 times, Manson himself seemed more like a performer than a defendant. His behavior was erratic. He would shave his head, carve an X into his forehead, and even try to attack the prosecutor. He was a man who seemed to thrive on attention, and the media was more than willing to give it to him. But behind the theatrics, the real question was, could Manson's influence truly be broken? Manson's followers didn't just believe in him, they were willing to die for him. And that devotion made the trial all the more unsettling. It wasn't just about Manson's guilt, it was about the power he held over others, even after the murders had been committed. It was a disturbing reminder of just how deep the psychological damage ran. The legacy of the Manson family murder 7 after Manson and his followers were convicted. The case continued to haunt America. The Manson family murders were more than just a series of horrific crimes. They were a symbol of the dangers of manipulation, the allure of charismatic leaders, and the vulnerability of young people searching for meaning in a chaotic world. The murders themselves may have ended, but the legacy of Manson and his followers lives on. The story of the Manson family serves as a chilling reminder of the power that cults can have over individuals. Manson's ability to bend people to his will has been studied for years by psychologists, sociologists, and criminologists. And still, many questions remain. Could these murders have been prevented? Could Manson's influence have been broken earlier? What was it about his followers that made them so willing to commit murder? The Manson family's story also serves as a warning to society. The fact that so many people could be manipulated into such an extreme act is a reflection of the power that charismatic figures can wield over their followers. It's a reminder that even the most peaceful, well-intentioned people can fall prey to the promises of a false prophet. But here's the question that still lingers: did Charles Manson truly believe in the helter-skelter race war? Or was it just an excuse for his violent tendencies? Could he have really seen himself as a prophet? Or was he simply a man using his followers to fulfill his own twisted desires? What did Manson really want from these murders? Was it just chaos? Or was there something more? And what about his followers? What happened to them after the trial? Did they ever fully escape Manson's grip? Stay tuned for the next video as we explore the aftermath of the Manson family murders, the fate of the surviving members, and the lingering questions that still surround Manson's true motivations. Was Manson really a mastermind? Or was he just another dangerous man with a lot of followers and too much influence? The answers might surprise you, so make sure you don't miss it.